Well, hello everybody. We are back live again. Back in the house. It's good to be here. Nobody's here yet. I think, hopefully my audio is working, but I'm pretty sure it is. And just like yesterday, I have spent the day working on a casebook. Yesterday, it was an immigration law casebook. Today, we are looking at the law of democracy, which is, it's about voting. It's about a lot of different things. In this country, it's kind of the basis of everything we do. And it's sort of an surprisingly understudied area of the law. It's a little bit disappointing, really, how little time I had spent learning this stuff before I got my hands on this book, which is called The Law of Democracy. And I am really enjoying it. I will say that the biggest problem I have with it is, obviously, it's kind of slow to read because it's hard stuff. And I want to know everything in here. Oh, thank you very much, Danette. Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't quite read from where I was. I should get a little closer. And so, I see all of these topic headings, and I want to know that. I want to know that. I want to know that. But it's like, stop. You have to read the whole thing if you want to learn this. Patience is a virtue, not one that I always have. But, so today I have been looking. It's called The Law of Democracy, and it starts out with kind of these broad constitutional concepts, and actually kind of these broad concepts about sort of the idea of democracy and of choosing the people who control our government, sort of as a philosophy, and where that idea comes from, and what kind of goes into those decisions. Andy the Magician, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, by the way, if you guys could tap the screen a few times, I would appreciate it. Just get some hearts on the screen, and we'll get some people in here. And so this book starts out with a lot of kind of a little bit more broad philosophy before it gets into kind of the nitty-gritty, which was interesting, but also a little harder to get through. And once I got my head around it, the rest of it sort of starts to make sense. And it's kind of one of those things that I every once in a while I'll be talking to somebody and I'll think, ooh, I want to give them 8 pages of this book all at once. And this is what it's like spending time with me in real life. Every once in a while, you just get an info dump. Thank you very much, Mr. Maybe. I appreciate it. What first made me interested in law and civics? I've kind of always been sort of this way. Thank you, Mr. Maybe. I was a geeky kid. And I really liked... I'll tell you what, I always wanted to follow the thing back to where it started. That was a big thing for me. It wasn't enough to understand how it worked at the end. I wanted to know where it had originated. And I think that is the kind of person who ends up interested in law. Because understanding the way law works today is really not enough, because it drags all of this history with it. And if you don't have the history kind of in the back of your head as you're thinking about the way it works today, then you don't necessarily understand, oh, that's pretty, thank you very much. Then you don't have as clear of an understanding. And it can be really frustrating for people because they'll see 2 things that look really similar. And they're like, why is this one being treated so differently from this one when they are so close together? And the reason is that 300 years ago, they were very, very different. And so they've evolved differently, even though they look the same today. So somebody like me who is kind of always picking my way back and trying to find the reason that we're doing things today the way that we are. I think this was sort of a natural fit for me. And I don't think everybody who's in law likes it the same way I do and is interested in it the same way I am. A lot of people don't find that part that interesting, but I do. And it's sort of just been the way I've always been about everything, which sometimes makes me kind of a slower worker, I guess. But I'm thorough, very thorough. And yeah, American history, well, so the American history is important, but the English history is important. The Roman history is important. On the spectrum, maybe, who knows? Definitely a little spicy. But definitely got some ADD up there, but who knows what else. I'm sure there's all kinds of fun things. I think that lawyers are all a little spectrumy. Thank you, Mr. Maybe. I think lawyers are all a little spectrumy. I forgot to plug this in before. Hopefully this works. And it's actually part of what makes us, what makes the, people try to set up products for lawyers, and they're really, really hard to do because every one of us needs something totally different. Sorry, everything's going to move for a second while I try to get this plugged in. It has to get, see if that worked. Yeah, all right, good. And that's something, a lot of people, one of the funny things, I've tried to test drive several file management systems over the years, and they're always terrible because they've been created for one specific lawyer who had these really weird needs, and I have my own really weird needs, and it's just never going to come anywhere close. So everybody kind of has to design their own, and that's what makes this so difficult. My day job, so I have been, most recently, well, let's see, I was Assistant Attorney General of American Samoa, and right now this is what I'm doing. I decided to take some time and try to teach people because it was really bothering me how law was being put out, and law and all of this government stuff was being kind of put out into the public. I thought it wasn't being done very well, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. And it was supposed to be just this short little thing that I did for a little while. I was like, nobody's going to watch this, and here we are. So, would I ever consider leaving the US for good? Probably not. I don't know. But probably not. Discount brand. So somebody else has said something about this Sanderson guy. I don't know. Is the Supreme Court a collection of Dark Lords? I do like to make a lot of jokes about the robes. I sometimes just refer to them as the robes or the black robes. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't have any plan to go anywhere. Partially because, I've spent all of these years learning about this system. What else am I going to do with this? Out of everything going on, what is most concerning you? I'll tell you what. There's something that there are some things that I have learned, things that were kind of right in front of my face the whole time and just didn't come didn't come together, forest for the trees or whatever. And we have this system that we all agreed to. It's all voluntary. It may not look like it, but we really are all here voluntarily in this system, as opposed to basically every other system that existed when this system was created. When this system was created, at the back of every system, there was a sword sitting there. Like, you might get away with a little bit, but if you pushed things far enough, eventually somebody was going to come along and take care of things. Our system never had that sword at the back of it enforcing the entire legal system. It was all about, we are all in this together. We all agree to this system. And that's kind of been the agreement this whole time. And this new wave of people have come along and said, you know what, we're going to test this system, and we're going to sit down and come up with as many ways we can to get away with as much as we can by pushing and basically not following the agreement anymore. That bothers me. That does bother me. Not partially because, we had the, I want there to be something in place that says you can't, everything is you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. But if everything was in place that said you can't do that, you can't do that, then we wouldn't be who we are. Part of who we are comes from the fact that all the way at the back, we're here voluntarily, and we're agreeing voluntarily. And so if we stop being here voluntarily, then the system isn't what we agreed to. And so that I find problematic, and I don't want to fix that because I like it. I think, yeah, do I think the world is better with free will? Of course. But, I just wish that, I think that people, something has shifted in how people think, and I think we need to start, everybody needs to start rethinking as a group, as a collective, about the end game, which is not, if everybody keeps thinking about how do I make everything better for me, then eventually we end up in a worse place. So anyway, well, I think we're capable of opting into the common good. I think we've done it before, but I don't think we're doing that right now. So I hope that changes. I was raised on Sesame Street. I'm optimistic. So you just started your 1L. You're reading Sources of American Law, and I'm trying. That is really familiar, and I'm trying. Is that right there? No. Where's Sources of American? Is Sources of American Law? I'm trying to think if that's really familiar, that book, that title. So I'm trying to think where it is. Moved overseas to pursue my legal career. It's hard to abandon the USA. However, some people, it is, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say what will end up happening. Have you talked about the Texas house? No, and okay, so there's two things. One is that it is a state law thing, which I just don't know that much about. So there are a lot of specifics there that have to do with state law, and as much as this is a big democracy idea, it is also a lot about the specifics of the law in the state of Texas, and a lot about how things shake out in Texas. Because, thank you, Mr. Maybe, because Texas has a very long history of, these walkouts, and this is like a thing in Texas. This is how Texas does politics. Texas politics, kind of its own animal. And I don't know enough about it. I know just enough to know that there's a long history of Texas politics doing this kind of stuff. Not exactly like this, not locking people inside of, whatever, but some shenanigans. And so it feels like one of those things that somebody who knows what they're talking about should talk about. And I'm not somebody who knows what they're talking about enough to talk about it. So that's sort of how I feel about it. Whenever I feel like there are too many things that I don't know, that I'm just not the guy. There's there are little bits and pieces of it that I do know, and those are the ones that, I'll talk about those. But the other ones that are kind of outside of my area, I don't know. Sorry, I got somebody. Somebody wants me to co-host, which I appreciate, but I'm in the middle of talking to my people here. Seeing, somebody asked about seeing the special green plant getting rescheduled. I don't know. I don't think that's something that that's going to be done by a. Well, you know what? Maybe it will be done, but who knows? Who knows? That is some. I like to say I am really bad at telling the future. I'm much better at telling the past, which is not a superpower. But what I do, the reason that I look at case law and that what I do is to look back and see what's happened in the past and tell you guys this is what's more or less likely to happen based on what we've seen the courts or the whatever government do before. It's really hard sometimes to guess, particularly what these guys are going to do in the future, but there are some hints. And under normal circumstances, I would say that a medication is not going to be rescheduled under a presidential order. But that does not seem to be how this particular administration is operating. So I would say it's probably more likely under this administration that a president would make an order to, the FDA, and the FDA would carry it out than under any other administration, who would usually keep their nose out of questions like that and leave it up to physicians. But I also am not sure whether I also have to look and see whether rescheduling is something that's totally done inside of one branch or another, whether there is any legislation involved or not, whether it's all regulatory. I don't know. So I can only make a guess. Being educated in the past is a superpower. Well, that might be true. You know what? I think it's more the superpower is being able to look through these things and pick out the important parts relatively quickly. Not that fast, but a little bit faster probably than average person off the street. Learned anything that blew my mind or surprised me? Every day. Every day I learn something new. Either something new out of nowhere that makes my head explode, or something that I absolutely believed was different than, I thought it was this way, and I realized that I have been totally wrong about something, and possibly even telling people something wrong for quite a while, which is really embarrassing. But I'd just as soon, I'd rather learn it as soon as I can, so I can stop telling people the wrong information. My mind blows all the time. Today, this whole thing where, I was looking up, where was I? I was trying to, I made a video about it a little bit ago, and I found that Justice Thomas opinion where he just goes all in on the power of the states to set the rules about who does and does not get to vote in those states, which runs very, very contrary to this big executive order 14248, 14246, something like that, that came out, and that there are several court cases about. So Justice Thomas, and I think also Justice Alito I saw a little bit later in the book, also had a dissent in that case where they just go all in, that they do not believe that the federal government has any say in whether or not an individual in a state should or should not be allowed to register or to vote. That should totally be up to the states to decide. So if that's the answer, that's their opinion, if that's two of the most conservative justices' opinions, then that's going to be real interesting when that one eventually makes its way to the court. There's California v. Trump and Washington v. Trump are both kind of hinging on that question. So, yeah, brain exploded on that one. What can you say about presidential authority to end mail-in voting with an executive order? Okay. I'm a little bit less certain about that one because, so here's the deal. U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 4, I think, right? Time, place, and manner. Everything related to elections is supposed to be left up to the state. The one thing that Congress is allowed to weigh in on is the time, place, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives. And there's this whole thing, this whole idea, I think it comes from Alexander Hamilton, that we shouldn't have to have separate elections. So basically, any rule that applies to one election should apply to all of them. So if the rule applies to House of Representatives, whatever, it should also be presidential, to state reps, to everything. That there is nobody should be expected to hold multiple elections just so they can comply with the law. That's ridiculous. And that's sort of I've seen that a couple of places. So with that in mind, what does time, place, and manner mean? Well, manner is apparently pretty restrictive. It's still mostly up to the states, and it's always been left up to the states. And it's also just Congress. It's not the president, by the way. So executive order, and president, But the president has been pretty good at telling Congress what to do, and they just do it. So, what does manner mean? And does manner mean mail-in? Maybe. So that is the only part of it, whereas deciding who is allowed to vote and who's not allowed to vote, that's definitely seems pretty much more clearly state law. The question of that manner thing does possibly seem like it wanders a little bit into the power of Congress to decide. So it's a little bit more wobbly, maybe, than some of those other questions. By the way, still, this is all still me looking at the past. No idea what's going to happen in the future. Can't guess the future, but when you look at the past, you can get a good sense. And again, finding that thing from Justice Thomas and Justice Alito, and them just going all in on that opinion, was pretty telling, I think, about how they might decide in the future. So, by the way, can you guys hit? We're still very low. We're just hit the screen a couple times. It doesn't matter. He's not following the Constitution anyway. That might also be true, but as a general rule, the court is far more restricted in what they can do than you probably think. They are much more narrowed in their things. Actually, there was a great article on SCOTUS blog a few days ago by Lawrence Tribe, I think, who's a great author, talking about the fact that that recently there have been some really good indications that even when things are getting a little crazy in the court, they are still sticking to the standards of review, which is the rational basis, the intermediate review, and the strict scrutiny, which means they're still sticking to the rules, which is good to know. It's good to see. And if somebody was going to be raising a red flag about it, it would have been him. So acts like mail-in voting is a new thing when it's very much not new. It's absolutely, of course it's not new. And it definitely, it's one of those things where, and here, I'm not a fan of both sidism as a general rule. On this one issue, I will say that, politicians do have a tendency to like something when it's in their favor and not like something when it's not. But this is something that's been a lot of flip-flopping related to whether or not the mail-in voting and all of that is popular or not, depending on whether or not it is doing a good job for a particular group of people. So yeah. Oh yeah, if you guys wouldn't mind sharing the live, I would appreciate it. That would be awesome. Share the live and tap the screen, and we'll get some more people in here. Once again, me and my technological advancement as usual. Yeah, it's surprisingly, well, I guess it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. True or false, some U.S. citizens vote by email. That is, as far as I know, there is no way to do that, but I don't know. I did do sort of a breakdown of the states, but I don't remember that. But it might, I don't know. Astronauts on ISS. Okay, all right, that makes sense. That makes absolute sense. And I'll tell you, we here in DC, we have these big, I don't know what you call it. They're kind of around town. They're like giant mailboxes, basically, where you go and drop off your ballot, and it is very convenient. And they, you only get the ballot, it comes directly to your house, and so anyway. Maine, you vote by email if you live overseas. Interesting. Maine seems to have some very interesting rules, and I need to pull out my I made this giant spreadsheet in the fall, kind of collecting as much voter data, voter protection data as I could. I was trying to just get all of the information that I could, and I was very surprised by a lot of the stuff that I found. But I need to go back and look at Maine again. I don't know. Maybe I may not have gotten through all of it. Many states vote by email if you live overseas. It makes sense. I was, I'm particularly surprised. I forget, there was one state that had really weird rules where you just it's like they have nothing. You can either register way in advance or you just walk up and vote or something. I'm trying to remember. It was something really very strange. There's some odd rules out there, but that's sort of the whole point, is that these states get to choose for themselves. And one of the things that I saw that I thought was really interesting in this case that I read earlier is that there were some attempts to make some changes to the Constitution, put some more stuff in there about how they were going to do, how they were going to, set up some more rules about ballots and elections and things. And it was pretty universally decided that if they did that, the Constitution would never be ratified, because none of the states would go for that. All the states wanted to make the decisions for themselves. And at that point, it's 1787 by that time. These guys all have functioning governments and have for a little while. And they've all been running elections. And so they've set up rules, and they don't want to change their rules. They've, to match some central federal thing, particularly, if you think of, now going from, say, Maine to, or I guess Maine wouldn't have been, Massachusetts down to South Carolina isn't so ridiculously far. But at the time, there was like a week and a half journey. Having to set up your system to match a system that feels like it's a week away. Screw those guys. I don't know. We know nothing about them. We don't want to have to set up things. We've got everything working fine. So that was the agreement, was that everybody got to set up their own systems, and that's how that worked. Texas is the Hunger Games of voting. Something. Here in Texas, we walk across a bed of hot coals barefoot and fight another voter in single combat. that's why, like, you know, Dee, I don't know if you were here when I said that, but what the reason that I don't want to talk too much about what's going on in Texas is I know how different things are in Texas, and I know how little I know about Texas. So I figured there are much better people to talk about what's going on down there than myself. So I'm trying to leave it up to them as much as possible to hit that stuff. If you guys can. Oh, thank you very much, Marazzo. I appreciate it. Yeah, if you guys wouldn't mind, tap tap tap. Oh, and well, and so I have. She said it's not been too bad living in a blue district, but heard some horror stories. So I worked a campaign in Baton Rouge once, and it was messy. Louisiana politics are ugly. We had to hire armed guards, and I think I don't know if this happened on. I can't remember. Sounds silly, but I can't remember whether this happened at one of our other sites or whether somebody told me this from a different election. But somebody had come through. I know it was while we were there. Had come through and knocked over all the porta potties and shaken them all up. I mean, this is with the armed guards there, so they must have waited till somebody had their back turned, like came in and knocked over all. It was so there was some. It was a Louisiana politics are a little dirtier than anything I'm used to. You know, I'm from Ohio. We're all nice about everything. We're probably, well, maybe not so much anymore, but we used to be very, very polite. Things have gotten, we've had some less polite people come out of Ohio in the last couple of years. Thank you very much, Arlene. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be out here doing what I can. It's all Southern hospitality until you don't look like you're from here. Yeah. Any critiques of Newsom's social media? Ohio has changed in recent years. So here's the thing about Newsom. I understand that everything is changing, and that we've moved into this era where the kind of nice the nice people politics just aren't going to work anymore. But that doesn't mean I have to be happy about it. And I'm hoping, because there have been eras in American politics that have been as bad or worse than this, as far as mudslinging and people being just nasty, and way worse, way worse. And we've come back. So I'm hoping that we can come back again. It might not happen anytime while I'm still around, but I'm still optimistic. But so yeah, that's but yeah, hey, that's some grade A trolling. But suggest I leave DC. You know, I'll tell you, it's one of the things. Part of the because for years I kind of wanted to run for office. I would love to work work as a legislator, mostly because I want to write legislation. I think it's fun, but you can't do it here, and so I'd have to move somewhere else. And the problem is that I'm sort of stuck here. But I don't know. Maybe, who knows? It's certainly not quite as pleasant to live here as it used to be. Oh, good. Some people are coming in. Well, I guess there've been people in here all the time. You know, there's some great places, and you know, I have had the pleasure or but privilege, I guess, of living in some awesome places, even like in relatively short term. So, as you say, if you don't live in the DMV, you don't realize how great it is. Do you mean in the DMV, how great it is in the DMV? Because I this is part of the problem is I actually do really, really love it here. I've left several times and I do always miss it. Any other parts of the country I've really enjoyed. I loved Maui was great, and I do love Hawaii, and I actually considered recently going back there because they're hiring prosecutors, and I was like, oh, that could be fun. I have some good friends out there. I loved living in Louisiana. I live in Washington, D.C. right now. I love New York. I lived in New York for a year. I would love to move back to New York, but I could never afford to live in New York. If I could live anywhere in the world, oh gosh, I don't know. But this is the problem: is I actually do like living here. I've lived in San Diego. It was all right. It was good. It just the weather was amazing. It just anywhere in the world. I might go back and try a different spot in the South Pacific. And try it without being in the work situation I was in. I didn't really get to enjoy my time in American Samoa as much as I could have if I hadn't been working the way that I was working. I was working so crazy that I didn't really get to enjoy it. I was living in this beautiful tropical paradise, and all I could think about was the fact that I couldn't find food because I didn't have time to get to the stores. So American Samoa is Vanuatu, and that's not even how it's pronounced. I always have trouble pronouncing that one. And Cook Islands, yeah, the cookies. American Samoa, it was reasonably expensive, and it is it's absolutely beautiful. I have a lot to say. I was there for a while, so but it was tough. It was not easy, and it is very, very far. It is a 5.5 hour flight from Hawaii, so it is a long, long flight, and it is so far. You look at your Google map, and you're just this tiny little dot in the middle of just nothing, just ocean. But I got to spend all of this time alone on big empty beaches, looking around, and who gets to do that? So I really don't get to complain. But I was also just working myself down to the bone. So Australia would be nice. Australia would be lovely, or New Zealand. And that's one of the best things about American Samoa was a lot of our food, like our meats and our butter and milk, came from New Zealand and Australia, which, wow, they have better meat and butter and milk. So that I miss New Zealand's butter. That was really good. And the lamb, good stuff. And I don't think you can even import it, which is I'm sad about. Let's see here. Lived in PG and every place else. Yeah, I've almost always lived right in downtown Washington because I moved here when I was young, very young, and it was really, really cheap to move into downtown DC at the time. And so I found a place, and I haven't moved since. And so I'm still right where I've been since 2003, pretty much. And so I've never moved anywhere else in the city because I'm always kind of, you know, in this little spot downtown. And the rest of the city got nice while I was, you know, kind of around me. My family does not live here. They still live in Cincinnati. Psych-wise, oh. Yeah, I don't like, yeah, Nina and I. Oh yeah, the beef tariffs. But no, my family's in Cincinnati, which is where I grew up, where my fun Ohio accent is from, or which I don't really have. I don't have much of an accent, but I like, sometimes I put on a random one just for fun, because it's fun. Go Bearcats! Or really, everything in Ohio is about Ohio State, so it's always Go Buckeyes. Both my parents went to Ohio State, and it's all anybody cares about is the Buckeyes. Let's see here. Ooh, I think I missed some things. Oh, somebody lived in Kihei. Yeah, Kihei is awesome. We kind of went off topic. I was talking when you came in. I was talking about the law of democracy, and then, as usual, I ended up meandering off. See if I can restore this, because there are some really interesting things that I want to say. And I do know, you know, we talked a little bit about gerrymandering the other day, and there are some great cases in here about gerrymandering. But one of the things that I've found, and I haven't gotten through enough of it yet to make a definitive statement on this, so I will come back to this later. But one thing that I did find is a reference to the fact that the Supreme Court says we hate gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is absolutely contrary to a democratic society, but we have not found a way to stop gerrymandering. That was at some point in history, but I don't know if they stuck by that. And they have a whole chapter in this book on gerrymandering. So it's like 150 pages on gerrymandering that I am going to be reading at some point, because everybody's talking about it, especially, and I want to know, right? But this is the problem with these books, is there's so much stuff in here that I want to know, and it is not fast stuff to get into your brain. So we have that, and then it's followed by the chapter on money and politics, which is like, give it to me, I want all of it. And of course, we were also talking about all of this stuff about ballots and all that stuff, super important too. So I've been kind of bouncing around this stuff, trying to figure out as much as I can so that I can pass it on to you guys. And this is part of why I've been doing, I've been doing these morning reports, and the goal is, although I haven't quite gotten it there yet, that I can cut my main video day down a little bit so that I have some time in the middle to do this sort of research on these other projects. And so that's kind of what I've been looking at here, is these sort of side projects where I study things like, other things that I can make kind of side videos on. Rockefeller School of Law is criminal and will be held. I don't know anything about Rockefeller School of Law, so I would have to look them up. I don't know them. Yeah, you got me on that one. Oh, speaking of, well, not speaking of at all, but I know that some people also mentioned Attorney Dye, who I think she and I are going to try to do another thing coming up sometime soon. I think we're going to look at the CASA case. I know I've talked about it a bunch, and I am super intrigued because she is the absolute master when it comes to getting through every detail of the case and knowing every single thing that goes on in there. And I am not. I tend to get, I have a little bit of forest for trees thing going on where, 3 or 4 things will grab my attention and I will run off and research those things until my eyes start to bleed or whatever. And so I will know so much about those 4 topics, and I will miss the fact that like right in the middle it said something like super important because it was so busy looking up these other 4 things and spent like 3 days doing a deep dive on those. So I'm really, really excited to sit down with her because I have some ideas, I have some thoughts on this case, and I really want to know if I'm right, and she will know because she is the master at breaking these things down, and this case is a minefield. This is my theory is and I know I put up a video the other day where all I did was ask you guys whether when you hear the name Casa v. Trump, it's, a case that you've heard of or not. And the response overwhelmingly was no. And I sort of assumed that it was something that everybody knew, like everybody had heard this case. And so that was really important because I was getting to the point where I was just going to start saying Casa v. Trump. It was the case, I see, I'm doing it again. It was the case in June that was supposed to be the case about birthright citizenship. And everybody got all worked up because it was supposed to be this case about birthright citizenship, and then it wasn't a case about birthright citizenship at all. It was a case about injunctions, about preliminary injunctions, and this was the other thing, is that then it was published in the news as a case that wiped out the nationwide injunction that said that courts could no longer create nationwide injunctions, which also was not true at all. That is not what the case said in any way, shape, or form. What it said was that an injunction is designed to protect the plaintiffs in a case. And you cannot write an injunction that just protects everybody in the country or everybody in the world. You have to write an injunction that protects the plaintiffs. You can write it to stop the entire federal government from hurting the plaintiffs. But if the plaintiffs happen to be everybody in the country, then you're fine. And so all of these cases have started to get rewritten so that the plaintiffs in the case are everybody in America or everybody in, all of these states or something like that. And so that's kind of what's happening. All of these cases are getting rewritten or reimagined so that the preliminary injunctions can cover everybody they need to. And so all it's turned into is just the lawyers now have to think of a different way to write everything. And that's my theory, is that this huge monster of a case that we absolutely panicked about for a little while, because it was like, oh my God, what does this mean? Turns out it just means that it's going to be more work for me the next time I have to write a case. But it's not going to be, it certainly doesn't say that you can't ever stop the entire federal government from doing something. You absolutely can. So what the problem that's happening now is that the entire federal government is being stopped from doing things only to when a group of states brings a case, the federal government is stopped from doing that thing only to the citizens of those particular states, which means that your constitutional rights change when you go from those states into the rest of the states, which also is not constitutional. That's not okay. That is absolute violation of the Constitution. So that at some point is not gonna, I don't think that's gonna survive. When at some point that's gonna come up, and that's gonna have to crack. That can't survive. So anyway, I'm really, really excited to sit down with Attorney Dye and talk about this case, because there's just so many different things about this that are problematic. Okay, so the first question was, would I ever consider doing a DC-based meetup? Probably. Maybe, yeah. Probably. I have to think. So here's the problem is, no, it's really not a problem. I get into my head about what the heck am I going to do in front of a bunch of people. But then I sit and do this and I'm fine. So yeah, I don't see a problem with it. It's just that if you were to, if I were like sitting about it and thinking about it in advance, I'd be like, I have no idea what I'd do for an hour. Well, I'd do the same thing I'm doing right now. So probably. And then there was another question that I missed. So I'm going to be talking to either, I don't know, we talked about maybe Thursday or over the weekend, something like that. I don't know, we're going to try to do it soon. The fear these things cause to regular people can't be put into motion. I need you to re-ask that question, because I'm not sure. I just want to make sure I answer it properly, because that sounds like a very earnest and important question. And I want to make sure I get it right. You don't want to, I just want, let me try it one more time. Let's see here. The fear these things cause to regular people to panic can't be put into motion. So okay. When the court grants a preliminary injunction, they don't always, but they can grant a preliminary injunction. I should explain what that is. While a case is ongoing, a decision has to be made whether we're going to... sorry. I want to make sure I do this right. Okay. Let's say that the federal government just made a law that no more yellow highlighters. So yesterday, yellow highlighters were legal. Today, yellow highlighters are illegal. And I sue the government over that law. We're going to have to decide whether over the next 6 months while this case is ongoing, we're going to use the reality from before the case, where yellow highlighters were legal, or the one from the day, after, where they were illegal during that 6-month period. Which one are we going to do? Are we going to allow yellow highlighters or not allow yellow highlighters during the 6 months that the case is going? And the court goes through this process of kind of figuring out which one's going to do more damage. And they choose the one, in theory, that's going to do more damage. Or that's going to do less damage, rather. And that's if the parties move for, and that's called a preliminary injunction. It's they say we're gonna hold things in a flight pattern while this case is ongoing, and try to minimize the damage while we make a decision. Hope that worked. Sorry, I'm coming up with examples on the fly sometimes. And for a little while, when that new case came out, when that CASA case came out, we thought preliminary injunctions weren't going to be allowed anymore. And we freaked out because it was like, well, now what? And it turns out they are going to be allowed. It's just we have to write the case a little bit differently to make sure that they're written right. I hope that makes sense. Sorry. Gonna pour water all over myself. All right. Give me 1 second. Threw me off my game, trying to come up with an example on the fly. All right. Okay, that's a good example. All right, good. Woo! Coming up with these examples that really work well is very difficult. That's not an example that really works well, but ones that, coming up with one that does really work well usually takes me a while. I have to think through a lot of different stuff to come up with a bunch, try a bunch of different things. Be like, oh, wait, no, that one won't work here, and that one won't work here. So, all right, let's see here. And I saw, come in from Northeast. That would be, okay, well, let me think about what I would do and how I would do it. Thank you, Just Paul. And yeah, there's a whole process. I did a breakdown of the preliminary injunction process in a lot more detail way back in February, when everybody was kind of, when these were coming up a lot. And I went through, I actually did it up on the whiteboard, and I went through all of because it's so many. I think I only totally broke down one of the decision trees, because there are so many decision trees, but I just kind of wanted to show sort of what it looked like, and that there are a ton of decision trees to go through. But I did do it at one point. It is kind of interesting to watch, but they have to go through all of these different sets of tests, and the eventual goal is to see basically whether at the end of the day, whether it's going to be more harm to leave whatever the thing is in place or not. But and that's the general idea. We're trying to minimize harm. So, all right. Oh, I got a fan in my fan club. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that I am very happy to be helpful. I am very glad. That's my goal. So I'm happy to hear that I'm helping out. Let me do a quick commercial, because I'm trying to throw these in here. One of these days, by the way, I will. People keep telling me that they're like, you got to get better at the lives, because there's all of this stuff you're supposed to do. One of us. So if you haven't been watching the morning report, check out the morning report, because I'm putting a ton of work into it. I'm going to put out an afternoon report today, which is actually just one short video that I cut out of the morning report this morning, because I went over 10 minutes, and I try not to go over 10 minutes. So it's just one case that got cut this morning. And let's see. But the morning report is just usually it's the last 24 hours in federal court news, and specifically kind of the cases that are going on with the federal government, because there are, at the moment, I think I've counted about 428 of them. I'm not totally sure that's correct, but because it's a little hard to tell, some of them are closed, but I think it's about that number. And so this is sort of me looking at the filings in the last 24 hours, narrowing down the ones that are interesting, and giving you kind of a quick overview of what the most interesting ones were. I usually hit about 4 of them. And then this morning, I thought this was kind of cool, because everybody's been asking me about this voting rights executive order, and I don't really have anything to say about it yet, because we don't know what it's going to mean. I went and I got the 4 voting rights cases that have made their way into the court so far, and I just did a quick overview of all 4 of them. So if you do go watch it, I will kind of break down the 4 voting rights cases that have happened so far, and one of them's already been closed, but think for pretty good reason. Basically, the court said, the people that it was talking about said that they weren't impacted by the executive order anyway, and the court said, yeah, this doesn't seem like there's any reason to keep this open, but they dismissed it with prejudice or without prejudice, so it can be reopened if that turns out to be wrong. And then there's 3 other cases that are open. Anyway, I think it's worth checking out, and I do them every morning. It is a race against the clock. I try to get them out in the morning, but using what I have to help people, I am trying very, very hard. The other thing that I will say is I have, if you want, it is also on, I got to watch things that will trigger the rhythms, but I do have the YT. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Just Paul. And thank you, so I have the YT as well, and a Substack. Substack is basically, I'm putting the same video on there. I'm doing a little kind of written version as well. And on the weekend, I'm doing a weekend report, which is sort of the things that I'm noticing. But that one is for my couple of paid subscribers that I have, because I felt like I needed to do something special for the people who are actually paying for a subscription. I wanted to, so there, that's my weekend thing. Anyway, so those exist, and you can find all of those in if you go to my profile here on TikTok, there's a link to my link tree, and you can find it there. How often does my common sense brain want to fight with my extremely logical brain? Constantly. And constantly. And when oh my goodness, this is why I don't sleep. Because I'm just sort of in a never-ending battle between making conclusions and then immediately questioning any conclusion that I make. It's what I do for fun. So that's what happens in here. It's lots of fun. That is part of why when I discovered the whiteboard, the giant whiteboard, that was a game changer for me, because I just whiteboard everything, and that's just how I break things out, and it just works so well because I tried. For a while I was trying to do it with Post-it notes, and they're not as sticky as they need to be, and they fall off, and your walls you end up looking like a crazy person because your walls are covered in paper. So whiteboard, I can put stuff everywhere, and then after a while I can take a picture of it and then erase it and stick the picture in a folder on my computer and probably never look at it again, which is great. How much am I using tools like Harvey to help me through? I've never used Harvey. I use my whiteboard. I use, I'll tell you what I'm using right now. I've keeping a lot of information in, hey, heuristic raccoon. I'm keeping a lot of stuff in Google Spreadsheets, and I did this whole thing with make.com. Yeah, Charlie and Pepe Sylvia, the Pepe Sylvia jokes, and Charlie from It's Always Sunny, definitely make themselves on that one. Yeah. Oh, I don't know what just happened, but my fan club has completed the first stage of the club quest. So thank you, or congratulations, or whatever. Thank you. So that's awesome. I totally lost my train of thought there. Sorry. I was like, what the heck is that telling me? Oh, that's right. That's what I was going to say. So I started using make.com to automate pulling information into Google Spreadsheets and manipulating it. But I did a really bad job. And so now I have my partners in the other room trying to learn how to use make.com better so that they can do a better job of it, because am not great at it. But it is helping me make the oh, thank you, Heuristic. I appreciate it. I've got a new subscriber. Yeah, by the way, if you guys want to subscribe, you can subscribe to me, and that does help me out. And I very much appreciate it. Thank you. Oh yeah, and so that's kind of how, because people keep asking, like, how are you getting all of this information together? And part of it is that I do have to open a ton of these documents every day, because there's some stuff that you just got to read. Like, you just got to open it and look. But I am using these spreadsheets to kind of pull as much of the information together as I can ahead of time, so that I don't have to every single time look for every single one of these things over and over and over again. Gift goal. I don't know. I'm learning stuff. I'm learning about the lives. I'm learning a little bit. I know that every once in a while it tells me that I'm supposed to set a gift goal, and I don't quite know what it means. Add a gift goal. It helps get the live out. Oh, okay. Oh, it's probably too late, right? I probably can't do it now. But I'll do it. Oh, I don't know. Can I? I have no idea. I don't want to screw it up. But okay, now I know that I will do it. I should be able to. All right. Hey, I like that. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I'm like sitting here playing while I'm... Oh, there it is. Maybe? Is that it? All right, so let's... Oh, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something in Greek. I'm just going to say do some Greek, because I'm not going to sing for you guys. You don't want that. All right, we'll see what happens. Oh, okay. Well, now this is what I need to learn this stuff. So if I hit 10 roses, then I'll give you guys what I can. Ooh, I might cheat even if I can cheat, I can get further. Oh, all right. She went straight for it. Okay, I think, did I do it? Okay. Oh, thank you, childless millennial. It was somebody I know. All right, well, I got to do it now. Hey. So here's what I got. This is the opening of the Iliad in ancient Greek. I think, did I do it? Is that right? I think I did. Okay. Right? I think I did. It should be. So, okay, I said it, and then you sent me 10 roses, so it should have done it. But, okay, wait, you did the heart me. You just need a gift goal. I did it wrong. Ah! I will figure this out. Oh, there, maybe. Does that do it? All right, I don't know if this is going to work or not. I can't tell if I'm doing this right. Did I do it? Is that it? Okay, all right. Woo! Okay. I think it worked, right? Yes. Okay. So this is, because you were going to go, there are a lot of lives you can go to. You are never going to see, I don't think you're ever going to find one where you're going to hear the opening lines of the Iliad in ancient Greek. And I don't break this out a lot, but Oh, I should do another one? There's only one. Okay. Let's see. Set up a new goal. Let's see here. All right. I know very little about the ICC, actually. I have a friend that used to work there, and I know nothing about it. See if that worked. I don't know. Regardless, I'm going to do this because I don't get to break this out very often. So, this is the opening of the... Hey! I like that. All right. So the beginning of the Iliad, and this is how poems were read in ancient Greece, is Me ninae de thea pelea de Achilleos ulomenenche muriachaios alge etheke pollas diphthemuspsukas aidi proeapsen ero on autus de eloria tauche cunesin oion noisi te passi dios de telei et obule exudeta prota dias te tenerisante atreides te anaxandron kai dios Achilleos. So that is my ancient Greek coming back to bear. Oh, I'm a dragon. I like that. Thank you very much. Book is gonna start floating. I know it does sound a little bit like I was sitting there reading and I'm like, I sound like I'm but this is like my one, stupid human trick that I can break out every once in a while is my ancient Greek. So thank you. It is. I think it's like my one impressive thing. How did the Athenians run a 10,000 member legislative body? It's funny. I have done, and I did a video on Aristotle's Republic and the kind of the best, who Aristotle thinks is the best leader. And I really, really loved it because it went through, it kind of broke down all these different options, the aristocracy versus the oligarchy versus all these different options. And it ends up saying that it's the person, and they specified that they're not talking about money, but the person who is willing or who gives the most of themselves to society is the best leader, essentially. And I was like, and that's kind of who should be chosen as your leader, is the person who gives the most of themselves and takes the least back in exchange. And he goes through hundreds of pages to get to that very simple point, because he breaks down every single subpoint of exactly what it means to give without receiving and all of these kind of little sub points in there. But I thought it was really kind of interesting to get to watching out for people who are only willing to give for something in return, and that any leader who gets anything back other than what they receive as being part of the team. They had this great metaphor about being on a boat, where the leader of a boat moves forward because everybody on the boat moves forward. But it's not about individually moving forward. It's about we all move forward because we're all on the boat. And so there, the person's leading, but he's leading and he's gaining things as part of the group. And that is an acceptable way to gain through leadership. But to gain as an individual is not okay. And I thought that was pretty awesome and pretty interesting. Anyway, can the president mandate that you be present to vote? I don't think so. No. But we'll see. That's, that's me guessing about how people will make decisions in the future. I actually, Robert, you missed the beginning of this. Was me coming in here with my Law of Democracy book, and I was reading a lot of stuff about that. So thank you very much. I got another subscription. Woo! Awesome. Able to check out the case that I asked about. No, and I forget, which one was it? Can you remind me? And I'm sorry. It was I think I screenshotted it. Oh, yeah, Subwave. Woo! And you know, that was the other thing is it told me to do was no. Yeah, if you can remind me, because I feel like I screenshotted it. Hey, Jason Bacon. But I can't. I feel like if I remember right, it was the case about that was going to add to Citizens United, right? Ooh, thank you, Allison. I think that was right? And because is the National Republican Senatorial Committee, is that why the case? I'm just going to write it down again because I like I said, I think I screenshotted it, but now I can't. I don't want to forget it. Everything's wet because I spilled water on the table. And actually, it's something that I would like to check here. Do you know who it's against? National Republican Senatorial Commission, or v whom? Because I'm wondering if it's in here. This is a relatively new book. No, it's not in here. But, all right. FEC. Okay. I'm assuming, and let me just check and make sure it's not the other one. Sometimes they're, sometimes they cite backwards, but I doubt it. Federal Election Commission v. National Conservative Political Action Committee. FEC v. Colorado Republican Federal Campaign Committee. That doesn't sound familiar. Any of those sound familiar? Anyway, all right. Does that book come in audio? That's funny. Have you read the habeas filing? No. Oh, she filed a habeas filing? Ooh, okay. Now there we're talking my language. All right. Now that I definitely am going to have to read. Okay. Ooh, that's, okay. That is a new development. So no, as soon as I get out of here, I am going to be going and finding that habeas filing because that's interesting. Because that's what, so for anybody who weren't here, can we read it together? Sure. Let's see. I mean, so one of the problems is that I'm not always great at multitasking, but let's see how long it is. Because if it's like 180 pages, but let's take a look and see if I can find it. Let's just see. Does anybody know the name of the rep? Link MIT. Okay. Oh, let's see here. Because I happen to have talk about privilege here. Let's see here. Okay, thank you very much. Let me see here. No, it wasn't Crockett. Let's see. Okay, so we have Texas rep held in Capitol seeks court order for her release. Request for writ. Here we go. Okay. So, okay, got it in front of us. So let's take a look. Application for a writ of habeas. Collier is not absent, so the restraint on her liberty is illegal. Representative, through counsel, presents the writ to address her illegal confinement. Any character of restraint which precludes absolute and perfect freedom of action will justify the issuance of a writ of habeas corpus. That is, they're saying that's the law under Ex parte Snodgrass, which is a Texas case. Particularly important is that case being cited is about a lawyer who was held in contempt. So it's another one of these kind of lawyer cases. Is that 1901? There's Attorney Dye. Representative Collier is under restraint by virtue of the Speaker of the House's order. Let's see here. Representative Collier has been informed that she is not free to leave the Capitol. If you leave the Capitol, you are subject to arrest. So, Part 3, the government does not have the power to compel any Texas citizen or any elected official into preemptive custody. So, there's our kind of issue of law here is, can they pre-say that you're going to be arrested? As a licensed attorney, she took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution. She files this action on behalf of herself, mindful that all citizens have a right to object to illegal restraint of government. Okay. The question before the court is not whether the House Sergeant of Arms can arrest an absent quorum-breaking member. They've already answered that question and held that a civil arrest was permitted. So they can arrest you if you are breaking quorum. The question is whether detention, arrest, and compulsion is permitted for previously absent but now present members. So she's not breaking that rule anymore. Can they still detain her? The legislature's 2/3 quorum requirement provides the roadmap for minority legislators to break quorum and the majority's redress if a member attempts to break quorum by remaining absent during session. And they're going to cite the law here. 2/3 of each house will constitute a quorum, but a smaller number may adjourn from day to day and compel the attendance of absent members. And of course, that was added after a few years ago when we had that, what was it, 2020? When we had the big, that last time that happened? The plain language is clear. A member may be compelled by the Sergeant at Arms to attend a legislative session if he or she is physically absent. But no such power is conferred on the legislature to arrest or otherwise compel a member who is currently present and not absent to stay. The Texas Supreme Court's opinion in Ray Abbott was based on authority to secure the presence and establish a quorum. The U.S. Supreme Court precedent from 1880 is similarly limited to compulsory process for absent members, but she's not absent, so this doesn't apply to her, as you're saying. Even Texas's current Attorney General, Ken Paxton, recently said that the same thing. Thus, the government is without any legal authority to detain members like Representative Collier who are physically present. Further, the government is without any legal authority to detain members when a quorum is not needed to conduct business. So even if they were able to have her, they don't need a quorum now, so they absolutely can't hold her. If the legislature is in session on Wednesday and Representative Collier is not physically present, then the Sergeant at Arms is permitted to compel her attendance. However, unless she is physically absent, the legislature is without authority to detain her. Part 4. There is no calendar for the House today. There's no calendar for tomorrow or any upcoming date. There's no pending vote. There's no action on which a quorum is needed. More importantly, Representative Collier is currently present at the Capitol. She is not absent. So her presence is need not and cannot be compelled pursuant to Article 3 of the Constitution. So here is what she is asking for. Order the Texas House of Representatives Sergeant-at-Arms to immediately release her and prohibit the Sergeant-at-Arms from restraining her in any respect unless she is physically absent from a current legislative session. So there we go. That is the entire thing. It was nice and short, so we were able to get through the whole thing. So that is, there we are. Let's see here. So we'll see what the court says here. But assuming that all of that law is in order, that seems pretty logical. Now, of course, somebody's going to respond to that, and they're going to have their own set of rules, but well, no. I know, isn't it exciting? That's why I looked over and I saw Attorney Dye, and I was like, I don't think I should be the one reading this. Attorney Dye's here. Are you kidding me? I should tell you, Dye, that I didn't ask to do that. They asked me. I wouldn't have. You know, reading them live is not usually my thing. But as I said the other day, if anybody is not following Attorney Dye, absolutely follow Attorney Dye. She is incredible, and she's in my. You can follow her because she's in my chat right now. So definitely follow her, and thank you very much. We talked a little bit ago. Oh, let's see here. Please explain to the people what can happen to those who are doing this to the Congresswoman. Well, I don't think anything... Well, you know what? I should not say that. Here is what can happen. First, what is being submitted here is just saying, we want the court to tell these people to let her go and to let her pass by without detaining her. We need a court order that says she can walk past them without them stopping her. So that is step one. That's key. Now, as for what can happen to them if, for example, the court orders that, she walks past and they stop her anyway, I am a lawyer, yes. Then let's say there could be a contempt of court. There could be all kinds of things. But there's also, the possibility that she could sue on a variety of different, it could be a tort. It could be something like that. But my guess is what she will probably do. Let's see, what is, let's see here. Can she sue as her rights have been violated? So she's trying to get out. That's like step one. So we have to see this response. And it's also possible that if the court responds to this as a habeas response, that will be, if she's suing, I think Attorney Dye said that she's also suing, I'm probably, my guess is on some sort of a tort, possibly some sort of a civil rights violation. I don't know. But trying to get, she probably get some sort of compensation for having a violation. But definitely a tort. But yeah, false imprisonment. But one of the things that I am hesitant to weigh in on here is there is some Texas-ness going on. And Texas has this history with quorum rules and refusing to allow quorum. Because Texas has been a one-party state for generations. It has been a different party, but it hasn't. It's the same people. They just, yeah. So for anyone else to ever be able to do anything, they've found ways to pull stuff off. And this has been one of the ways they've done it. So they've had a very long history of messing with quorum rules. So anyway, let's see here. But keep in mind, you know. Oh, so that, the point was that I because there's all of that there. I know that there is some nuance here that I don't get because I don't know enough about Texas to be able to weigh in on. And so it's possible that some parts of this are part of the game. This is, that are part of what happens every time this goes on. Parts of this are probably not, but I don't know. Like I said, I do know that this whole quorum, messing with quorum thing is just part of how Texas does politics. So it's possible that this is not the first time they've held somebody in there. I don't know. I will say that it is. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say this out loud. I hope I don't regret saying this out loud. I'm willing to bet that it's a slightly different situation when you are holding a woman in here. That feels a little more problematic. I feel like I'm just imagining, my first round of imagining this in my head was like, the Old West and them sitting there holding somebody in there, and I don't know, but this feels a little gross. Sorry. I don't know. I that's probably more than I need to add, but it just feels a little. Okay. But yeah, that's the thing, is that this is a state that I don't know anything about, and these guys do. They know, so I've been trying for as long as I've been voting. Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, so there. Okay, guys. Sorry. This is what you get. You leave me in here long enough, you're gonna end up in another rabbit hole. There's another set of cases in this book that I was gonna do a whole side thing on at one point, and I gotta again watch my. One of the toughest things about doing this was finding a way to do it without triggering the algorithm on this. But they're all in Texas, and they are called the. Let's see here. I feel like I'm gonna flag the rhythm if I don't come up with another word. But yeah, whatever. They're called the white primary cases, and this is from back when the Democratic Party controlled Texas. Like I said, Texas is always a one-party state. It's just that in 1960, I forget the year. There was the shift from the Dixiecrats to the control of the Democratic Party shifted, and so the people who were in the parties just kind of flipped. And so yeah, but there's this series of cases, and they are kind of fascinating. They're called the white primary cases, and they're related to whether or not. Well, the bigger question is partially whether or not primaries are elections, particularly when there's only one party, because they determine who's, if there's only one party, they're determining who's going to get there, right? So there's this series of cases that happens, and they happen over like 40 years, but they're called the white primary cases. First two are, there's Nixon v. Herndon, there's Nixon 1 and Nixon 2. So it's Nixon v. Herndon and Nixon v. Condon. And the first one, there's a Texas statute that says, so there's a statute that says that, well, it says it backwards, but it says that only white people can participate in a Democratic primary in Texas. That's 1927. And the court says, no. The statute can't say that. And so they try again. They change it. And let's see, what was the second one? The second one, they shifted it so that it says every political party in the state can choose who its members are, and those are the only people who can vote. And the court still says no. But then they tried a third time, and the third one passed. And I'm trying to see. Usually I don't jump into these unless I prepared, because I got to remember it now. And it becomes about, whether it's actually a statute that does it, or let me remember real fast. Grovey v. Townsend is the one where it actually passes. Oh, I think that it's instead of being a statute, the party changed their rules inside of the party, and at that point, the Supreme Court said, "Oh, well, we have no control over that. That's up to them. That's not a state action anymore." And so it seemed for a minute like that was going to be it, and then a couple of years later, this other case comes along that kind of screws everything up. And this one's in Louisiana. Somebody gets arrested for stuffing ballots in a primary, and it makes it all the way up to the Supreme Court, because they're like, well, this is just a primary. It's not really part of the election. And the court says, no, you can't do that. If you're stuffing ballots, that decides who's going to run for federal office. So you're interfering with a federal election. And people in Texas were like, aha. And so they brought a new case and they retried this question. And this time they were able to win on a broader question. It's a little bit less clear than this. It's a little bit more fun if I had more time to prepare it. But essentially, they're able to bring it back again. And this time, as they go through with that information, they're able to say a primary, if you are restricting who's allowed to participate in a primary is part of the election cycle. And you can't do that. That is the same as restricting people from participating in the general election, especially when you have a one-party state. And yeah, Louisiana is in trouble. But it's really just a very fascinating series of cases. And particularly because it goes on, to read them in sequence, one after another, and just watch. Okay, we'll try this. No, all right, we'll try that. Oh, here we go. Oh, no, and to see them kind of all go in order is pretty fascinating. And then there's one last one called Terry v. Adams, which is way more complicated, and I do not have the brain power to explain it right now, because when I was going to make this video, it took me like a day to lay that one out so that I could explain it properly. But it's way more about private clubs, and the court really fractures over this question of whether private clubs can decide who can join or not, and whether or not it's not the Democratic Party specifically. It's this group called the Jaybirds, but they are the group that always decides who's going to be the Democratic nominee. And so essentially they're the Democratic Party. So anyway, it's fun. It's a fun series of cases with very serious tragic results. But it is, it's if you like legal logic, it's a fun one to go through. Let's see, if an ID is required and they charge a fee, is that a poll tax? This is exactly the question, and this is why most states now offer some sort of a free ID, is so that they can require an ID that does not cost money. So often there will be a driver's license, and then there will be an ID. And the ID won't give you permission to drive, it won't give you anything else. All it will be is your name and your picture and some sort of identifying information. most states have some sort of a photo ID that is free, so that they can require it. If they have a voter ID requirement, they certainly have that, because otherwise it would be a poll tax, or it could be a poll tax, and they don't want to mess with it. But it has been, that is very astute. And it was really fun when I was going through all of the different, I made this giant spreadsheet of all the states and their voter ID laws, or all the different voter registration laws and everything, last fall, because I need better hobbies. And yeah, but what about the fees associated with obtaining documentation to get said free ID? You know, I think, it's not that you're wrong, because you're not, but I think at some point it there's, I don't know. I think that, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. But the ID itself, the one that they require you to have, wait for the lawsuits, indeed. Your friend was gifted a timeshare. She doesn't remember signing anything. Is she legal? I don't know. That's going to be one that I don't know. I would be very careful of something. Well, so and this is something we've touched on a little bit and talked about in a little bit of detail. In the last couple of years, there's been a big shift how the court looks at status. And when I was in law school, status was becoming this really big thing. And by status, I mean kind of a thing about you that separated you from the crowd, and things that were status. The court was starting to say that those things about you that kind of separated you and weren't things that you chose were less, and the less impact, the less you had to do with making the decision, the less you should be allowed to be discriminated against based on that thing. And so, which isn't exactly what I'm trying to say, but just this general kind of concept that things that were status, things that about you that weren't choices that you'd made, became further and further from things that were good things to have laws written about. And that was this idea that was, when I was in law school, they were like, this idea is growing. This is a new thing that's getting bigger and bigger over the years, and eventually this is going to take over everything. And then it stopped. We studied it like this is the beginning of how everything's going to go from now on, and then there was never another case that went down this road, because they kind of completely changed directions. And so the direction they've gone, so things like, but it's something that's really bothered me, because that made a lot of sense to me, and so things like the idea, it really bothered me when the Supreme Court sided with the city or the town in I think it was Oregon, about making it illegal essentially to exist without having a place to live. That feels like a status thing. You are a person who doesn't have a place to live, and that's what I'm trying to get to. Is so the bigger ones, the ones that are easy, are the ones like skin tone, things like that. And those were the ones that the court was agreeing with, but then they were starting to move into things that were a little bit less things you could see. But now they've sort of turned this corner, and so that's something that doesn't quite sit right with me. Birthplace would be another thing that, yeah, you just don't have control over as much, and so, and you probably have, well, yeah, it's kind of depending on how far you get from having control over it. The court would find it to be something that's less and less able to be legislated about. But that whole concept has kind of collapsed on itself, and the court doesn't really seem interested in that anymore. So sorry, that was a bit of an aside. If Texas goes through, oh, but that was the whole point, is that you know, the idea that by not having money, which, okay, there are arguments about whether or not that is within your control, but like I said, I'm not saying everything is not either in your control or out of your control. It's sort of a spectrum, and the fact that you don't have money I don't think should be something that should be criminalized. So that's something that didn't quite sit right. Okay, question. If Texas goes through with gerrymandering, can someone living there sue them? I mean, you can always sue anybody. Doesn't mean you'll win. But I mean, I would have to come up with, somebody's going to sue them. Absolutely, somebody's going to sue them. Lots of people are going to sue them over that. I don't know if they're going to win or not, but they're going to try. Maybe a class. I don't know. The question is really going to come down to who has the standing. Standing is, you know, the person who is actually injured is the one who's supposed to bring the case, and it's not always as obvious as it sounds. It's very often, especially when you get into these weird lawmaker garbage, it's way less obvious than it sounds. Sometimes you're like, oh, well, you know, clearly this is hurting me, but no, it's not. And so they figuring out exactly who the right person is to bring this particular argument. So, if I live here and raise my hand in person, does it count? Yes, it does. Absolutely counts. Thank you very much, Justin. Yeah, right. Thank you. Yes, Attorney Dye is, yeah. Texas Democrat locked in Capitol because she didn't sign the doc. How can they do that? So we missed. We went through the whole habeas reading, and yeah, it's we're gonna see how they respond. So hopefully that we get a good response to that. You know, I don't know why, but Texas politics are a funny thing. Texas is an interesting place, right? I will tell you. So just as a quick overview, the short version is that the person filing this agrees that they have a right to arrest somebody who doesn't show up for work for the legislative session, but she did show up for the legislative session, and there's no legislative session. And she's there, and there's no legislative session, so they have no right to arrest her, is her point. And so she has asked the court, based on those two pieces of information, to say that they are not allowed to arrest her. And so that's where they are right now. I have a feeling the Supreme Court is going to have a lot of work when they get back. I agree. And I think that we will probably see her sue for unlawful imprisonment. Unless, the only reason that I'm hesitant to say that is that there may be a political part of this that I don't understand because I'm not involved in Texas politics, and that may not be the thing you do in Texas politics. I don't know. The winning move in Texas politics might be to stand out front in cowboy boots and a big hat, and you know, I don't know. There's probably a political angle to this that kind of changes things a little bit, and I don't know how that factors into this. So, but oh man, the Supreme Court, whew, they're going to be busy. I was surprised that I got real excited when I heard there was a habeas case, because people kept asking about it, and I was like, I don't know about the politics and stuff, and I was like, oh, a habeas case, ooh, I love a habeas. I'm a big fan of habeas corpus. It's actually I think it's still on there. I had to pull some stuff off. I need to put it back on, but on my Amazon wish list there is a far too expensive book on there that I sort of don't ever expect to get, but if I do someday, I will be very excited. A book on habeas corpus that it's one of these case books, but just about habeas corpus. And someday, maybe somebody will buy me this habeas corpus book, and I will sit. I actually thought that it would be. There's a little bit on it in this Fed Courts book that somebody else also bought me. That is an amazing book, but. Ooh, sorry. But I did want to do it. What's the book named? I think it's called Habeas Corpus. Yeah, it's very expensive. These books are insanely expensive. They are stupid expensive. I should probably look at eBay. Yeah. Ms. Collier is a lawyer herself. How much does that help her? Quite a bit. I'm sure she knows exactly what she's doing. But that's what I'm saying, is that I'm guessing this isn't just about law. There's probably an element here about doing the right thing for the political angle. Like, we all know that if somebody... If something happened on the Senate floor and the response was that senator, I don't know, there are bad responses and good responses that might be the correct legal responses, but politically they wouldn't look right. Sometimes you want to look, and sometimes whatever. I don't know what the right response is in Texas, but I'll bet you she does. So, the library, what stinks? I'm so annoyed, is that it's really hard to get into a library, a law library here. And my law library that I'm allowed to go to is in Baltimore, which is hard to get up to. What decision am I waiting for right now? The Louisiana... Oh, thank you very much, Andy, for subscribing. The Louisiana... there's one that they were supposed to do last year, and they haven't done. And no, they're not restricted access. It's just yes, they are restricted access. They're all law schools, and so they'll only let you in if you're. So they'll all let you in if you are a local law student, or if you went to any of the local law schools. But technically, I went to a law school that is like 30 miles away, which I think is still local, but whatever. They won't let me in. So let me see here. What was that? I was just answering a question, and I forgot what it was. Oh, decision I'm waiting for. Yeah. So there've been a few discussions going on about Hogwarts restricted section. Indeed, there've been a few discussions going on about the Voting Rights Act, and the Fifth Circuit just made a really big decision about the Voting Rights Act, and all of this stuff with the redistricting is also kind of wrapped up potentially in this Voting Rights Act stuff. It could be like Texas could get smacked down under a Voting Rights Act potentially, but the Supreme Court is about to possibly make a huge shift in voting rights. So, and they were going to release it this summer, and then they decided they wanted more. I think another round of arguments, which is weird. So We're going to have to see. Oregon tariffs case. Is the Oregon tariffs, is that different from the... I don't know if that's different. I'm also waiting on the other tariffs case, but I think I would be really surprised if the tariff appeals case. Oh, and we're going to hear more about CASA, aren't we? There's going to be a CASA 2 and a CASA 4 and a CASA 12. Oh boy. So much CASA. I did, I told, so if anybody's still around from the beginning, I asked earlier about, I did a video the other day where I asked people to let me know whether I needed to reintroduce CASA every time, because I mention it almost, comes up so frequently, and everybody said, what's CASA? So I was like, okay. So the answer is yes. Always introduce CASA. And so I try to always remember to explain what I'm talking about at least a little bit. And I think that it's fortunately people seem to be finding a way somewhat around it. And it's, I think that Attorney Di and I are gonna, might be what we're gonna talk about. I think what we're gonna talk about in a couple days. But it's just, when it first came out, I thought the world was ending. I thought the world was absolutely ending, and the little bitty things that that were mentioned in the concurring opinions turned out to be a roadmap to get around it. So it's almost becoming a civil procedure case, and we're gonna see. Okay, your question. I'm sorry. TJ does it. Who gives the international court their authority? The countries that sign on to it. The international court is something that countries agree to. Just like, thank you, Scrupulous. Just like, consent, like most maritime law is done through agreements, through, we have agreements with all of these different countries, so that no, I think it's the habeas, it's called like federal habeas corpus is the name of the book. It's I lost it. Yeah, it's just, we have all of these agreements with these international with all these different countries, so that if one of our boats runs into one of their boats, we've already figured out in advance how we're going to deal with it. And we call that maritime law, but it's really, 100 different little agreements. Do you think they'll overturn more due process cases? Substantive due process? Ooh, substantive due process. I don't know. We're procedural due process is really where I think the all of these employment cases, we need to see what happens, because there is so much procedural due process getting kind of steamrolled in that process with all of these different cases. And I did kind of a rundown on just the voting rights cases, but I would love to do one, and I will, when I have time, try to pull something together to talk about some group of the employment cases. There are so many of them, just so many of them going on, that it's hard to summarize and to find a way to get them all, make sense of all of them. But actually, Bitefly says, will unions get in the way? And that is actually a very good point, because there might be some interesting dividing lines. If I separate out the union cases, for example, from some of the other cases, might be a better way to look at them. I don't know. But trying to find some way to make them Oh, there's one that's pre-owned. All right, I'll go check out eBay. Thank you. But yeah, that might be a way that I could get through them, or at least, so what I'm trying to do is give, while I'm doing the kind of news rundown, also sort of do a little thing in there where I give a little blurb on like a subject matter when I have time, and that might be a way to break them up a little bit so I could actually get through a few of them at a time. But I am very worried about procedural due process being kind of overlooked and ignored, because it is very important, and a lot of it is also just it's getting, part of the strategy here was just to overwhelm people so that they gave up, and that's worked a lot. A lot of people just gave up. So it's not great. That's not good news for anybody. That means the government's not running well. It means I believe I saw today that there is okay, I have not confirmed this, but I saw something about there being an issue with radioactive shrimp. We need really good meat inspectors, and if you start laying off the people who keep our meat safe, that's not good. I want to be able to eat, not worry about that sort of thing. I want to make sure that our food is safe and that kind of thing, and the people in those jobs do that. So when a lot of them leave, especially the ones who can find better jobs because they're really good at their jobs, that's not good for any of us. That is not good news. So anyway, yeah, the shrimp. Oh, I love shrimp. Well, and there's another issue, which is the people who work at the places, whether or not they are documented or not, there is enough fear related to showing up at work with a certain skin tone that people are just not showing up. And people who are here legally for short periods of time. Bye, Di. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later. Are leaving because it's not pleasant to be here, and we need them. That's we need them here. So it's not good. Not that objectively are the numbers that we need are diminishing. These are things that are objectively bad. So. Yeah, I heard that there's a police officer in Maine who's self-deporting. I just got a thing that told me to invite Jack Schlossberg to co-host with me, and part of me wants to just do it and see if he'll come, but yeah, maybe we'll all invest in Geiger counters. You know what? All right, fine. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I don't expect him to do it, but why not? So in a minute we might have Jack Schlossberg. We won't. Anyway, all right. So that was okay. Yeah, no, I should have known better. No, instead what it did was give me a whole list of people I could do it. Yeah, the JFK Schlossberg. That's why it's usually it asks. It's like, oh, why don't you invite person X to come join? And it's nobody I've ever heard of. So I was like, why is it telling me to invite Jack Schlossberg? I should work for Judicial Watch. I don't know what Judicial Watch is. I'm hoping that one of these days somebody who has money is willing to pay me to do some of what I do. I don't want to change what I do. I really like doing what I do the way I do it. But I do would like to afford things a little better. Which reminds me, while we're on the subject, just a little thanks everybody. There have been a few of you who subscribed tonight. Thank you very much. If anybody else wants to subscribe, you can do that here. You can also go, if you go to my, oh, we missed my long hair. I kind of miss it too. And so it's a little, you can go to my profile and there is a L-Tree. I'm supposed to not say the name of other websites. And it's got a bunch of places that if you want to, you can support me, which would be super helpful right now because I've got a couple of things that came up that were a little bit of a surprise and I'm trying to cover. So that would be awesome. That guy in my what is PFP? Can you tell me what PFP stands for? I like the short hair. The only thing is that sometimes it looks like I have a oh, that guy in my profile pic. I got it. Yeah. Sometimes it falls and looks like I'm wearing a sometimes it looks great and sometimes it looks like I have a toupee on, which is hilarious because I have so much hair that I use thinning scissors to just cut them to just get rid of hair because there's so much of it. So that is one thing I don't have, but I've never had to wear any kind of fake hair. But it does sometimes fall a little bit and look like it's like I'm wearing a rug. Especially like later in the day. I think especially while it's so muggy. It is really, really, really humid in Washington, D.C. right now. Let me tell you, should you go to law school? My question is, do you want to be a lawyer? If you want to make money, don't go to law school. If you want to be a lawyer, then go to law school. But just don't do it to make money because a lot of people are not going to do that. I have a little bit of, I put a little bit of something in it to kind of hold it right when I get out of the shower, just a little bit to kind of hold it in place, but not much. And by the end of the day, yeah, DC gets so hot. Today has been relatively nice, but it just gets insanely hot. It is one of the, you know what, the two of the hottest places I have ever been are Washington, D.C. and New York City. New York City in the middle of summer, because of all the cement just absorbing all the heat, is just that there is a kind of heat there that is like being inside of an oven. But here it's just swampy and gross. And somehow not designed for it, even though it's always been like this. Would you consider doing a post on receivership? So it's funny because I've worked with it a little bit because I used to work in bankruptcy, and I've only done like banks in receivership, so I don't know if that's what you mean. Have I seen the current president in person? I don't think so. I don't think I have. I'm not sure. Where else can we follow you? YouTube, Substack. If you go to my profile to the link tree, there's at BrinoDC, link tree at BrinoDC, or I've got the Substack and YouTube. They're both, it's actually, everything's at BrinoDC. And Living Trust is very smart to do. No, I can't give you that. Never mind. Don't say that. I can't give you that's legal advice. I can't say that. Sorry, I can't say that. Oh, court takeover of a prison system or healthcare. That I don't know much about, actually. I have done it with a bank, but we actually did a bankruptcy of a bank holding company. Oh, I don't expect Jack to come. I thought it was funny, but yeah, I don't really expect. He's got like 10,000 people in there. But yeah, that's so. And just to let you guys know, so YouTube's mostly the same as here. It's mostly the same stuff. There's an addition in Substack. I'm doing like a typed out version of what, kind of a little essay version, because it's Substack. You're supposed to have something written. And then on Sunday or Saturday, I'm doing, for now anyway, until I just get too tired to do it, but I don't think I will. I'm trying to do something. I have a few paid subscribers on Substack, and I'm doing like a written thing on Saturday that I'm calling the Weekend Report for them. But it's just sort of this is what I've noticed. So anyway, but yeah, you can follow me on those as well. But it's mostly, like I said, it's the same stuff. It's just cut a little differently. And I'm also putting these lives over on YouTube. I'm just downloading them and putting them on there. To find data for USDA meat inspectors, I did not. Oh, where did I find data for USDA meat inspectors walking out? So it was more of a metaphor. I don't know if USDA meat inspectors walked out, but I was in general, the idea of cutting down career employees in the government, I think, is problematic, because having people in there who know what they're doing make sure that things like our meat supply stay safe. The entire idea of the merit-based civil service is to ensure that we have people in the jobs who are good at their jobs, and not people who are in their jobs because of a political appointment. And that was a conscious decision that was made in 1860 something. It was the spoils system that they got rid of with the civil service. They replaced with the civil service. And so the idea was, instead of having every new president come in and just fire everybody and bring in a whole new staff of the entire government, they replaced it with this system where, I don't know if any of you have ever applied for a government job. It is hard. It is very, very tough. Once you get in, then you have to do the job for like a while and prove that you're good at it. And then once you've done that, then you get kind of vested in the job, and then you're really hard to get rid of, because they don't want politicians coming through and getting rid of you just because they don't like who you voted for. And so that's the change. Thank you very much. That was the change in how we did things. The old way was the spoils system, and they replaced it with the civil service. And so this is the thing. Book on Chicago meatpackers that led up to. So I wasn't specifically saying anything about meatpackers today, but I just meant in general. I think that the idea of losing a bunch of people who know what they're doing leads to things like finding out that we have problems with the meat supply. Not specifically that we have a problem with the meat supply. Thank you very much. Sorry. I may have been a little unclear in that, and I do apologize if I was. I may have been a little glib. Aren't some of the prisons under consent decrees? I don't know. I did, by the way, I don't know if anybody saw this case, but we did have the case the other day about the prison in... I don't know if anybody saw the one. We had this prison in Washington, but it was specifically, I had a lot of responses because it was specifically about people who were being held on civil charges in a detention facility, because it was an immigration detention facility, and they were being paid $1 a day. Washington state law says you can't do that. And so this case had been back and forth. And the thing was that the people who owned the prison were getting paid for the prison. They were getting paid to keep people there. Plus, they were getting paid let's say, $17 per hour per prisoner who was working for whatever work they were doing. And the state of Washington said, okay, well, you have to pay them 11 of it. I don't know, 17, it could be 50, it could be 12, I don't know. And so they were getting paid on top of that for whatever work these detainees, I don't want to say prisoners because it's not a prison, it's a detention center. It is important. It is important. We got to use language. Be careful with our language. And they were, so they were getting paid on top of what they were getting paid by the government for housing these people. They were also getting paid for their work output. And the government said, you have to pay them at least minimum wage while they're working. Because this is a civil confinement. They may just get let go at the end of this. They're not, some of them might be found to be undocumented or, whatever, and may be sent out of the country, but some of them might not. Some of them might just be released. This might just be a temporary thing. And in the meantime, you need to be paying them at least minimum wage. And so this, the decision was made by a jury that they would get all of these plaintiffs collectively would get their $11 an hour. And so essentially the company decided to just cancel the program, which is like, guys, you weren't even, it's not even like you were losing money. You were just making slightly less money off of extra money off of the work they weren't doing. But I guess there is a possibility maybe there was some sort of a liability thing. I don't know. But it went through like a ton of appeals. And finally the Ninth Circuit was like, we're done hearing appeals on this. No more. So in Mississippi and Alabama, what we're mostly talking about there are probably criminal cases. This is different. This was civil because these were immigration detainees. So slightly different. That's why I'm saying we gotta be careful with our language. But yeah. And so are private prisons like chain gangs? I don't know. Prison farm system after the Civil War, and that is a very important thing to note because there was kind of there is case law on this concept of what they call the badges of slavery, which is the post 13th Amendment, 15th Amendment, 13th, 15th, I forget. But the idea that those amendments don't just prevent slavery, but things that kind of look like slavery, or what they call the badges of slavery, and so there's a whole body of case law around that, and it does prevent similar things. So I don't know. 13th, thank you guys. I 13th and 15th, I get flipped in my head for some reason. By the way, just a side note, since we're on felonies and we've been talking about democracy, I did find it very interesting how many cases. Okay, bye, Robert. Thank you for coming in. Oh, I see. Oh, sorry. I thought you were saying you got to work. I was kind of surprised when I went through all of these states, how many of them are now allowing people to get their vote back after felonies, which was when I was a kid. It was essentially, that was just as a matter of policy. Once you were convicted of a felony, that was kind of the end. And there was sort of I think a kind of countrywide realization that wasn't necessarily fair, and that there should be some way to get your vote back in at least some cases. And that seems to have spread pretty wide. I was very surprised at the number of states that now allow you to regain your vote after a felony in one way or another. So I was kind of happy to see that. I really enjoyed looking through all of those laws. It was interesting. I really enjoyed that. So I will tell you what, guys. Something is being cooked in my house that smells amazing, and I need to go find out what it is. And I've been in here for I think 3 hours now, so or 2.5. I think I'm going to go find out what that is. I would really appreciate it if anybody wouldn't mind if you can check out my my other stuff in my profile. If you want to support me and can do that, I would appreciate it. Now would be helpful because it's a good time for that. And otherwise, just check out the morning report in the morning and keep up to date with me. And I will keep doing lives when I can. But I really appreciate you guys coming in and sticking around. And thank you all so much for being here. And I'll try to be in again sometime, I don't know, maybe even tomorrow. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great night. I'm going to go get some dinner. It smells really good.